The following episode can be viewed on the YouTube channel Bernie or Bust Television.
Good morning, USA, and welcome to another episode of the Bernie or Bust Show. We have lots of questions this morning. Why did Mayor Pete drop out? Why is Elizabeth Warren staying in the race? Why would Elizabeth Warren at this point want to take any delegates from Bernie? Wouldn't she instead want to put her support behind Bernie? Pete is dropping out and supporting Biden. Shouldn't that be what Warren is doing for Bernie? What is her goal? What's Bloomberg trying to do? Why did Biden win in South Carolina? Let's tackle that one first. Why did Joe Biden win in South Carolina? Exit polling shows that it was older black voters, not younger black voters, that turned out in force to support Joe Biden. Southern black churches are politically active. Southern black preachers preach from the pulpit which candidates to vote for, and they preach about current issues and what positions to take on those issues. Black caucus leaders are active in those churches. From the time of Bill Clinton, or even from the time of Jesse Jackson, we've had a solid alignment with black leaders, black churches, and the DNC. There are solid relationships with the DNC and black leaders. There is true party loyalty there. And for voters of all shapes and stripes, party loyalty, when it comes to the DNC, means voting blue no matter who. It means voting blue no matter what. It means voting blue regardless of the issues, regardless of the morals or ethics. It just means party loyalty, period. Yes, it's tribalistic. Yes, it's immoral. Yes, it's unethical. You have to ask yourself, what does winning even mean when the machinery that you put in place causes increasing levels of pain for disenfranchised people? How can you call that winning? And yet all across the South, this loyalty from black voters is the firewall that Biden is hiding behind. This is what party loyalty looks like in the South.
The Democratic Party has a party. The party decides its nominee. The public doesn't really decide the nominee. The public gets to vote for President of the United States, but people who are active in the party, who participate in the party, they decide the nominee. Superdelegates are very influential in the party. Also, delegates are very influential. And just because you're a pledged delegate for Bernie Sanders or a pledged delegate for Joe Biden doesn't mean when you get to the convention floor that you'll stay a delegate for Biden or Sanders. That's a process. And so it is a process.
Which means that this whole process we're engaged in, organizing and volunteering and sending in contributions and going to rallies and voting, is all in the minds of these party leaders, basically democracy theater, right? Sure, we'll let you feel like you have a say in the process, but if you pick someone that we find unacceptable, we're going to invalidate all of that. All of these contests, every door that was knocked, all the phone calls that are made, they're talking about invalidating all of that to pick someone that they find unacceptable. It's just completely flagrant. And to tie it back to something that, you've been excellent on and covering, extensively, and that we always draw on your expertise for our show Rising. This is the same group of Democratic elites who run around all day, every day, crying about threats to democracy and, the sanctity of the vote and election interference and all of that. But when it comes down to it, when it's inconvenient for them, they're ready, willing, and able to completely dispatch with any notions of democracy to serve their own ends.
And what are those ends? Let's connect a few dots. Let's figure out who is part of the DNC, and let's figure out what their plans are going forward. If you've been a follower of this show, you know that Elizabeth Warren has been aligned with the DNC machinery from the beginning, from before the beginning. Hillary told her to stay out last time. Hillary told her to come in this time. Now let's figure out who Hillary works for. There's an alliance. DNC is aligned with Third Way. DNC is aligned with Center for American Progress. DNC is aligned with corporate America, with Wall Street, with hedge fund managers, central bankers, and on and on. The DNC is aligned with the CIA. So if you're talking about the deep state, you're talking about Bill Clinton, you're talking about Barack Obama, you're talking about the CIA, you're talking about Hollywood. And even if it's painful to bring this all to the forefront, it's real. Bloomberg seemingly is an independent operator, but he wants a brokered convention for the same reasons that the DNC wants a brokered convention. Bloomberg is a Republican. Bloomberg is aligned with the oligarchy because he's an oligarch. Now, the last piece of the puzzle is the corporate media. CNN, MSNBC, Fox News, Washington Post, New York Times, they're all part of the same cabal. Even though Bloomberg is not part of the machine necessarily, he's an oligarch, and so he finds Bernie Sanders to be an existential threat, in the same way that David Brock, John Cowan, Neera Tanden, etc., Hollywood talent agencies, and so forth, they all find Bernie to be an existential threat. He is a threat to their way of life. He is a threat to their influence and to their gig flow. So all of these players in the game who are aligned against Bernie are working together, whether on purpose or not, and their immediate objective is a brokered convention in Milwaukee in July. Here's an article from Li Fang at The Intercept. DNC superdelegate promoting brokered convention is a significant GOP donor, healthcare lobbyist. William Owen, a Tennessee-based Democratic National Committee member backing an effort to use so-called superdelegates to select the party's presidential nominee, potentially subverting the candidate with the most voter support, is a Republican donor and healthcare lobbyist. Owen, who runs a lobbying firm called Asset and Equity Corporations, donated to Senator Mike Rounds, South Dakota, and Senator Dan Sullivan, Alaska, both Republicans, and gave $8,500 to a joint fundraising committee designed to benefit Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell, another Republican. I am a committed Democrat, but as a lobbyist, there are times when I need to have access to both sides, and the way to get access quite often is to make campaign contributions, said Owen in a brief interview with The Intercept. I'm a registered lobbyist and I represent clients and they have interest in front of Congress, and I attend the Senators Classic, which is a Republican event, each year, he added. Owen noted that he understood how his GOP donations could open him up for criticism, but stressed that he also gives to Democrats. Federal Election Commission records show Owen has donated to Democrats in previous years, but has not donated to his own party's congressional candidates this cycle. Owen has not given to any presidential candidates this cycle. Owen, currently registered as lobbyist for Clocks Technologies, a medical product company, was quoted in the New York Times today as one of the party insiders considering an effort to block Vermont Senator Bernie Sanders' path to the nomination at the DNC convention in Milwaukee this July. A former member of the Tennessee State Legislature, Owen is currently an executive member of the Tennessee Democratic Party and DNC, making him one of the 771 unpledged delegates, also known as superdelegates, who could play a hand in selecting the presidential nomination. Owens is a supporter of former Vice President Joe Biden's presidential campaign and has pushed to use superdelegates to make Biden the nominee. So let's look at this plan from the Biden side, not the Bloomberg side. Bloomberg has his own plans to commandeer the election when it becomes brokered. Biden is working in tandem with Buttigieg, who just dropped out. It's clear that Buttigieg is taking marching orders from the CIA, who is taking marching orders from the Clinton machine, and Biden is part of the Clinton-Obama world machine. So they've anointed Joe Biden this time around the same way they anointed Hillary the last time around. Biden is the one they're putting their hopes on this time around to be the nominee. So the party machinery has chosen Biden, and they chose him a long time ago. Hillary was featured recently on this show saying to a commentator that she knew who the nominee was going to be, but she wouldn't reveal who that might be, but she knew. Now, why did Pete drop out and not Amy and Elizabeth? Because the Biden camp told Amy and Elizabeth to stay in to take votes away from Bernie. This is a CNN Politics article by Jeff Cellini. There is no rush to push Amy Klobuchar or Elizabeth Warren out of the race yet, and here's why. Joe Biden's campaign needs them in the race on Tuesday. Team Biden, which is Team CIA and Team Oligarch, Team Biden believes having Klobuchar in the race through Super Tuesday is incredibly helpful to them. Why? It blocks Bernie Sanders in the Minnesota primary on Tuesday. If Amy gets out, that gives Minnesota to Bernie, a top Democrat close to the Biden campaign tells CNN. 4 years ago, Sanders crushed Hillary Clinton in Minnesota, winning 62% to 38% in the state's caucuses. He has a strong appeal to Minnesota voters. But this year, it's a primary contest which Klobuchar advisors believe she is poised to win or be incredibly competitive with Sanders. A similar argument is true for Warren in Massachusetts. The Biden campaign wants Warren to be in the race through Super Tuesday when Massachusetts voters weigh in. They don't expect Elizabeth to win Massachusetts, but they expect her to take away delegates from Bernie. And any delegates they take away, even if it's only a few, will help with this brokered convention strategy that they've been concocting for all this time. Pete Buttigieg does not have such a home state argument to make, but 3 advisors to his campaign say he intends to stay in the race through Super Tuesday. But a conversation is happening tonight about his future, they tell CNN, and a decision has not been made. Pete was part of the Stop Sanders meetings that were held with DNC insiders long ago, way back in the summer. So Mayor Cheat has been on the team all along. Elizabeth has been on the team all along. Amy has been on the team all along. Kamala and Corey and all the ones who have already fizzled out, they're on the team too. They'll still be on the team going forward. This is a concerted effort. That's just another way to say conspiracy, I know, but a concerted effort doesn't get you labeled quite as quickly. So this guy Owen is one of the architects of this plan. Owen worked in 2018 to block a Sanders-backed plan to weaken the role of superdelegates in the nomination process. If we don't have a vote, then what good are we? Owen told Politico at the time. What good indeed? The push was ultimately defeated. Sanders supporters won a key concession from the DNC, changing the rules to only allow superdelegate participation in the nominating process on the second ballot. The Intercept previously reported on the potential for party insiders, including corporate lobbyists and lawmakers funded by special interests. Owen, for example, is funded by the healthcare industry, to cut a backroom deal to block a more populist candidate from the nomination. Several superdelegates are consultants to healthcare clients lobbying against Medicare for All. Goldman Sachs, Citigroup, and JP Morgan Chase each employ lobbyists who simultaneously serve as superdelegates. The bullshit gets deeper and deeper and deeper. Chris Dodd, a former Connecticut senator and one of the superdelegates quoted by the Times today, a week ago, is a lobbyist with the law firm Arnold and Porter, which represents corporate interests such as the Pharmaceutical Research and Manufacturers of America, Lloyd's of London, and AT&T. Dodd has endorsed Biden for president. What do you think the other superdelegates are poised to do? According to the DNC insider who was speaking at the beginning of this show, even pledged delegates are up for grabs all the way through. He said it's a process. Dude, what does that mean? Current polls suggest Sanders will have the most voter and delegate support going into the nomination, but may fall short of the threshold for the nomination on the first ballot. That's where we come in, dear listeners and viewers. In recent days, several candidates, including Massachusetts Senator Elizabeth Warren and former New York City Mayor Mike Bloomberg, have embraced the potential for a brokered convention in which superdelegates could be used to stop Sanders. So the whole point is stopping Sanders. So the mom RN watching CNN wondering, why would Elizabeth not drop out? That's why. She's made it very plain. They want a brokered convention so they can stop Bernie. That's why Elizabeth is staying in the race. It's not difficult to figure this out. Bloomberg, notably, has discussed efforts to poach delegates from other more moderate candidates to bring together an anti-Sanders coalition. In January, his campaign hired Alexandra Rooker, a superdelegate from California, as an advisor. Michael Nutter, the former Philadelphia mayor and DNC superdelegate, is a co-chair of the Bloomberg campaign. FEC disclosures show Nutter has been paid at least $45,000 by the Bloomberg campaign. So Bloomberg has bought and paid for a number of DNC operatives. You almost have to say at this point that Bloomberg has made himself part of the team. So then you have to conclude that Elizabeth Warren and Michael Bloomberg are on the same team, the oligarch team. Rah, rah, rah. And that's the same team that older black voters think they're a part of. They're loyal to this team. Rah, rah, rah. My team's gonna win. But Americans, especially working class Americans, and the rest of the world too, is going to lose if this team wins. So Owen, the architect of all this, told the Times he has been in contact with multiple campaigns. Owen floated the name of Michelle Obama as a potential running mate to bring the party together. Other superdelegates, according to the Times, are floating moderate lawmakers such as Senator Mark Warner or Senator Chris Coons, as potential unity candidates to lead the ticket. Sherrod Brown, Democrat from Ohio, a popular progressive lawmaker, has also been floated as a unity candidate. So they're just grasping at straws. They're trying to find any possible way to block Bernie.
The game is rigged, and nobody seems to notice. Nobody seems to care. Good, honest, hard-working people, white collar, blue collar, doesn't matter what color shirt you have on. Good, honest, hard-working people continue. These are people of modest means. Continue to elect these rich cocksuckers who don't give a fuck about them. They don't give a fuck about you. They don't give a fuck about you. They don't care about you at all. At all. At all. Yeah.
What I do know is this. I did not sign up to be a part of a party that has contempt for working class people of any color. And the reality is that for a long time now, the Democratic Party has been looking down their nose with contempt, especially at white working class voters, but I would say with all working class voters. And so as a matter of morality, as a matter of who I want the party centered around, the type of people whose interests I want it to represent, that to me is the battle and the struggle of realigning the Democratic Party to its historic base of being a champion for working class people. So look, maybe that doesn't, there's a possibility that doesn't work out this election cycle, that it takes time. Look, when you've looked down your nose and held someone in contempt for a long time, it takes time to rebuild that relationship. But my commitment is to focusing on rebuilding the party in that direction, realigning the party in that direction. And it happens to be that the data also reflects the fact that it is most likely that that is the best path in terms of electability, winning back places like Pennsylvania, Wisconsin, and Michigan as well.
And dear listeners and viewers, that is our focus as well, I hope. If you're still watching this show after all these months, I hope your focus is to take the DNC establishment down and put in its place something much better. And that's where Bernie or Bust comes in. BernieOrBust2020.us is the answer to this chicanery. Of course we're going to Milwaukee. Of course we're going to be there in the streets with our voices and with our signs. Of course we're going to try to unfuck things at that point. But why not unfuck things preemptively? Taking the Bernie or Bust pledge and getting others to take it is a great way to try to persuade the people who would vote for the DNC team, in the South especially, that it's not going to work. No matter what they do, Biden is not going to be able to defeat Donald Trump because the Bernie or Bust team is not going to vote for anybody who isn't Bernie in the general election. If we can let all of these strategic older voters, especially in the South, understand this, they can't have Biden. They simply can't have Biden. And they can't have Bloomberg. All they're going to have is Trump. And that's the message we need to deliver. If we can deliver it soon enough, then Super Tuesday voters will vote for Bernie instead of Biden. They'll vote for Bernie instead of Bloomberg. And certainly instead of Elizabeth and Amy. We need a blitz. We need to get this word out so that we don't have to wade into the streets in Milwaukee. We don't have to turn cars over or whatever else happens. And I'm not saying that I'm going to be turning cars over, but I am going to be there yelling, and I think you should be too.
We want to gain as many delegates to the convention as we can, from California to right here in Texas.
Why do we want to get all those delegates to the convention, Elizabeth? There's only one reason. It's to block Bernie. So if you're still thinking you could vote for Elizabeth in a primary contest, what you're doing is blocking Bernie. If you want to block Bernie, vote for Elizabeth. That's the best way. I don't know why I told you that.
So what you just saw there was Elizabeth Warren last night as the South Carolina results were rolling in. And it was a really bad night for Warren. So bad that she didn't even win one single delegate from all of South Carolina. And yet in that speech, she was talking about winning every delegate she can and taking them to the convention, making her goal extremely clear at this point. Her objective is to go to the convention and try to steal the nomination from Bernie Sanders. There's no other explanation for what Elizabeth Warren is doing right now. Elizabeth Warren damn well knows, given her level of general support, given the fact that she's losing her own state to Bernie Sanders, given that she has very low support among Latinos and among Black Americans, that she has no path to either a majority or even a plurality of delegates. delegates. So her only hope is to slow Bernie Sanders down because he's the most likely one to win a majority and try to go to convention and steal it from him. And this isn't a conspiracy theory. In no way am I making this up. Last night on CNN, I posted about this in my previous video, but I'll reiterate it. There were reports from the Warren campaign that South Carolina was never about Warren even doing well or winning delegates. It was all about siphoning Bernie's vote, because every vote they took away from Bernie took away a couple delegates from Bernie. So Bernie Sanders was clearly going to lose last night to Joe Biden, but with Warren in the race, Biden won by that extra bit more and narrowed Bernie Sanders' overall delegate lead and kept Bernie Sanders 2 or 3 delegates further away from an outright majority when convention rolls around.
So Elizabeth didn't achieve viability, but everything she did achieve was for Biden's sake and not for Bernie's. Do you think she doesn't know this? Another thing Elizabeth is saying is that Bernie is taking dark money and super PAC money just like she is, which is crazy. Her super PAC is pumping more money into her campaign than anybody else's super PAC. Why do you think that is? Where do you think that money is coming from? It's coming from the team that she's been playing for all along. So to cover her tracks, she's trying to say that Bernie is doing the same thing. If she is referring to Our Revolution, then we need to debunk a few myths about that. Our Revolution is accused of dark money spending for Sanders by Elizabeth Warren, but only took 6 donations over $5,000 in 2019 and none larger than $25,000. Elizabeth's super PAC, on the other hand, has over $9 million already. Where do you think you get off by comparing that super PAC to Our Revolution, which is a 501c4 nonprofit, not a super PAC? This is all very slimy. So again, if we want to counter this slimy plot, we have to wade in now in the form of pledging to the Bernie or Bust movement. If we let them know in no uncertain terms that they can't have anybody but Bernie, especially not Biden or Bloomberg, then we've done our job ahead of the convention. And then our job at the convention is to go on in and enforce what we've set up with the Bernie or Bust pledge. We need to make it clear to them that if they nominate anyone other than Bernie, they're going to lose to Trump, which they probably want, the insiders, but that's not what the American people want. Overwhelmingly, left-leaning voters have said that they want to defeat Trump no matter what it costs. They don't care about their issues as much as they care about defeating Donald Trump. So if you really want to defeat Donald Trump, people, even you team players for the DNC, you need to understand you're not going to get anybody but Trump if you try to nominate Biden or Bloomberg. And if you're still voting for Elizabeth or Amy, you should know that you're voting against Bernie. Please respond in the comments below this video or this podcast if you are planning to go to Milwaukee. Maybe we can meet up there. Maybe we can compare strategies if you're going. If so, I look forward to seeing you there, and keep on burning.
And nobody seems to notice, nobody seems to care. That's what the owners count on. The fact that Americans will probably remain willfully ignorant of the big red, white, and blue dick that's being jammed up their assholes every day. Because the owners of this country know the truth. It's called the American dream, because you have to be asleep to believe it.
Get on board the Bernie or Bust train. Come get on board the Bernie or Bust train. Once you hear that clickety-clack, there ain't no time for turning back. Go get on board the Bernie or Bust train.
The preceding episode can be viewed on the YouTube channel Bernie or Bust Television.